8 years ago, I was a carpenter working for a remodeling firm, and we got taken off a job one day, and when I got back to the shop, my boss told me, he said something like, man, I always knew I should have invested in this marketing stuff, but I just never got around to it. And I kid you not, I pulled my phone out of my pocket, like down in the corner, like looking down, and Googled the word marketing because I wasn't even really sure what he was talking about. And it's funny that was my my entry into the marketing world, because here we are 8 years later, and I own a marketing company, and we work with hundreds of contractors a year, and that's like my whole life now. So I didn't see that coming. But over the years, I learned a bunch of things that in retrospect I feel like I should have learned faster. Like sometimes I'm just a slow learner. And in this video I want to share some of these things with you in hopes that you can think about this stuff a little differently and see things more clearly than I did, so that you can get over some of these things and they don't end up holding you back, okay? So number one is that marketing and business, especially marketing, is a constant competition. And this is the first one I talk about, because when I first got into this stuff and I was trying to figure out how to do Google ads and SEO and build websites and get seen on Google, SEO is the perfect example, because I didn't know. Well, let me put this in construction terms. When I was an apprentice carpenter doing remodels, and I was like maybe doing some stick framing, for example, I hadn't done it enough to know how perfect it needed to be. And if you've ever done framing, if you've done a lot of framing, you know how perfect it needs to be. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but there is a good enough that will get you the end result that you want. But as a newbie, I was constantly fiddling with stuff, trying to get everything to be absolutely perfect. And I'd be sitting there building a pony wall or something for like 2 hours, and my dad would come in and be like, "You still working on this?" And he'd take out his hammer and he'd smack it a few times into place and be like, "It's good enough, move on." And I was like, "Oh, okay, like it's good enough." I didn't know that it was good enough. So when I was first getting into marketing and SEO, I had that same mentality, like I don't know how good it needs to be. And so I just like had this idea of perfection in my mind, and like I was trying to chase this perfection, and it was like, well, if I want to win, I just need to be the best in the world, right? Like that's kind of all I had to go off of. And it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself to be like, well, I have to be the best in the world in order for this to work. And while that might help you get some results and motivate you, at the same time, it's just not the truth. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to marketing and SEO and things like that for local companies, like construction companies, you only have to be better than your competition. And so the first step of that is just understanding how good your competition is, which that took me a long time to figure out. After looking at thousands of companies and helping hundreds of businesses beat their competition, I'm very good at it now, but back then I had no idea, what I was looking at or anything. So you only have to be as good as your competition. So for you as a local business owner, step one is like figure out who your competitors are. Like do some research, know who they are. Go to Google. If you're a plumber, type in plumber near me and see who else shows up. How many reviews do they have? What do their websites look like? Maybe even talk to them, give them a call, grab a beer with them. Like get to know your competition so you can understand what they're doing. And once you have all that information, it might take you some time to figure out what you're looking at. And you can hire people like me to help you understand what you're looking at. But once you have a clear picture, it becomes a lot simpler to know how to win, how to execute that. And it's always just a competition. One of my favorite analogies for SEO is bodybuilding. Now, if you're not a bodybuilder, bear with me here, but when you are when you are somebody who's out of shape, you've never been to the gym before, you want to get in shape, you want to build some muscle, you want to get stronger. If you go to a personal trainer, they're gonna have you do the most basic stuff. And the reality of it is, like, you can go to the gym, like just walking through that gym door is progress for you because you're such a newbie. You could lift weight, you could do any kind of weightlifting and you're going to make progress. And if you find a steady routine, like, you're going to make progress really fast. And if you're in a bodybuilding competition, like, let's say you work out every day for 3 months, you go on stage next to your competitors, and you might be able to compete. It just depends on how strong and how big they are. And it's the same exact way when it comes to SEO and local marketing and being on Google Maps and things like that, is your competition might be super strong. Maybe they've been working out or doing SEO for decades, or maybe they haven't and they're super weak and it would be super easy for you to beat them. And you won't know until you understand the playing field and you can look at them and see what's going on. And let's say that you do a bunch of SEO and you are beating them. Just like with weightlifting, if you stop doing SEO, and I keep saying that, I know it's technical jargon, but it's like, if you stop going to the gym, you're going to slowly get weaker. And if your competition keeps working out, they're going to keep getting stronger and they're going to overtake you. And the main point of this is that it's a constant competition. You're always up against other companies. Those other companies are working hard to beat you. You have to continuously work hard to beat them. And if you're winning and you get complacent and lazy and you stop pushing on the gas, your competition is going to overtake you eventually. And I see this happen all the time. Like, I'm watching this happen to a guy I know right now. He doubled his business last year. He's doing really well. He got a whole bunch of reviews. He was crushing it on Google, and he still is. But he hasn't got a review for 4 months. And eventually that could catch up to him when some other company comes in and they pressed on the gas as hard as he did, but they don't let their foot off the pedal. They're going to pass him and he's going to have to play catch up. So local marketing is a constant competition, and you have to, the best way to compete is to understand the playing field and understand who you're up against and just make sure you're beating them. You don't have to be the best in the world. You just have to be the best in your area. The next musing I'll share with you is that what works for one company won't necessarily work for another company. Every market is different, like every location. You know, you might have a cousin in another town over and they just absolutely crush it with their Google ads. They get so many leads, so many jobs. And then you try Google ads and it just spends a bunch of money. Like, you don't get that many leads, you don't get that many jobs. It doesn't work out for you. And it's really common. This is a really common situation. And when stuff like this happens, we tend to think, oh, like, I'm doing it wrong. And maybe you are doing it wrong because there's a lot of ways to do it wrong. But what's just as likely is that you're just up against different competition. There's like different supply and demand going on. Like, maybe there's less people searching on Google ads for your thing in your town. And maybe your competition is really strong and they're able to spend 10 times as much money as you. So they get all the leads. You know, everything isn't always equal. On my videos, I talk a lot about Google Maps because that is like the most even playing field that there is. Because Google really isolates each company based on its location. And so unless you're next door to the strongest competitor in your area, you're probably able to at least get a good chunk of the supply of customers and be able to like get a steady flow of work coming from that. But as you move up the lead gen pyramid and you move into advertising and things like that, you're competing in a much larger area, meaning you're competing with a lot more other companies. And so chances are some of those companies are going to be a lot better and a lot stronger than you. So what works for some doesn't work for others. And the only long-term solution to get around this is to try different things and measure the results that you get and find out what works for you. And stop paying attention to what works for others, and just at some point you just look at your own information, your own data from what you've tried, and then you know what works for you. And you do more of what works and less of what doesn't. Let's see. Here's a good one. So marketing problems are often sales problems in disguise. And so what I mean by that is, like, I've worked with people who spend a lot of money on getting leads. Like, I'm talking $10, $20, $30,000 every single month. And I've seen it before where a company will be spending 20 or 30 grand a month, and they're always saying, we need more leads, we need more leads, we need more leads. And then I look in their CRM and their tracking, and it's like, man, they're getting tons of leads. And I have no idea, like, why most of these leads aren't working out. Like, there's no information in there. Very few of their leads actually turn into sales, and we don't know why. And what's going on is that they really have a sales issue. It's not a leads issue. Like, they aren't treating these leads the way that they could. And, you know, sales is its own topic, but, you know, and to put it in the simplest term possible, you got to treat every lead like it's the only one you got. And you got to wring the towel. Like, you got to get out as much as you can out of it. If you spend 20 grand on leads and you get 100 leads, if you could just get 2 extra customers out of that 100 leads, like, that might be the difference between it being profitable and not profitable for you. So without going too much into sales, like, don't sleep on sales. Like, brush up on your sales skills, practice that stuff, have a process, have some kind of scripts and templates, and write it out. Like, write out what your best sales process is. Give your customers the best experience you possibly can, and continue, like, as you use your process, you'll see ways that you can improve it, and just continuously be doing that. But more leads is not always the answer, because oftentimes the biggest constraint is actually sales. And I say this especially for companies who are already spending tons of money on leads, and they're always saying, we need more leads, we need more leads. Like, look at sales, because that's one of the other levers you have, and leads aren't unlimited. You know, that's another one that I didn't understand in the beginning. Like, I used to just think that there was unlimited amount of leads. Like, I could just do Google ads, and if I spend $1,000 and I get 10 leads, well, if I spend $100,000, I'll get 1,000 leads. And that's just not how it works. There probably isn't 1,000 leads even available. And I don't know why I thought that, but I just thought it was like a tap, and you could just get as many as you were willing to pay for. And that's just severely not the case, especially right now. Like, it's we're going into the holidays, the economy's slowed down a little bit, and there are just fewer jobs to go around. And so, you know, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, like, leads are unlimited, you're missing the big picture. Like, there's always a certain amount of jobs to go around. And if you've ever heard of the 80-20 rule, 20% of the contractors get 80% of the jobs. Those are the big guys in your area. So, like, study them. Like, why do they get so many of the jobs? It's because they spend 100 times as much on marketing as the average small contractor does, and they've been doing it a long time, and they're good at it. So think about those things. I've got some others I'll share in the future, but those are some pretty major thinking points. And I'll throw this out there. You know, my team and I, we get hit up every day from contractors wanting help with their marketing. And at this point, we've looked at thousands of different businesses, and we could look at a business for 2 minutes and know exactly what's going on. We can look at your competitors and see. We can help you understand what would be required for you to win in your market. And for right now, at least, we're doing some market position reports for free at no cost. All you have to do is find the link in the description or the top comment. Click on that, go answer some questions, and then we'll take a look at your stuff and give you a report on what your market is like, what your competitors are doing, and what you can do to beat them. So go check that out. And then also, I would love to hear from you in the comments if you have just any big lesson that you want to share with your fellow contractors. You know, what is something that you've learned that when you look back you wish you would have known, 10 years ago or whatever. So hope that stuff's helpful for you. This information's been really helpful for me and has helped me not only grow my own businesses but help a lot of other people grow theirs, and I hope it'll do the same for you.